Hello, and welcome to the Get French Football News Preview Show. I'm your host, Eric Devin, and joining me on this Thursday evening are Adam White and Peter Bowler. Nathan Staples is absent, watching some football in Germany. Without European football to reconsider, we'll focus on a bumper set of 6 matches from across Ligue 1 this weekend. First, an update on our score predictor game. Adam and I both had a pretty good weekend last weekend, recording 5 points each. That's 3 points for a correct score and 1 point for a correct result. Nathan got 1 point, and Peter got none. That does leave us with a new leader. Adam is on 27, although Nathan and I are in hot pursuit on 25 points each. Peter's a little bit further back at 12, but there's no relegation in this league, and there's also play for with 6 matches to preview tonight.
In true Trump fashion, I'm gonna call for a fix if I don't.
The underrepresented voters. All right. So let's start with the first match of the weekend. That's tomorrow's trip by Monaco to Lorient. Les Merlus entered this match without several key players, including goalkeeper Benjamin Lecomte, defender Mikel Sayani, and midfielder Walid Mesloub. This raft of injuries is sure to make new manager Bernard Cassoni's debut a tough one, especially considering the opposition. But former Newcastle man Sylvain Morveau has finally found fitness. Suffice it to say that his time in England was a disappointment, but at Rennes he was an impressive presence in attack when fit. Adam, is his inclusion on a consistent basis enough to spark the likes of Benjamin Mukanjo and Majid Waris, or is there really no hope for Lorient, even at this early point in the season?
It's an interesting point because Marveau's an experienced player. He's 30 now, and he's not just been around in Ligue 1, but he's obviously been abroad in England. He's an experienced performer, and for a team like Lorient, what they're really missing is quality. Having sold Didier Ndong and Jan Diouf over the summer, and Guerrero, of course, to Dortmund over the summer, and without really replacing them, they were sort of a team that finished in that bottom third, and they were weren't ever really in danger of going down, but they only survived by a relatively small margin, and not replacing those players was a massive undersight in my opinion from the board, and not necessarily Ripple. I imagine he wanted to replace them, but never got the chance, and that's really been their undoing. And Marveau was one of those few players that did come in over the summer. And they obviously are having high hopes for him. He's been injured and he's been in and out of the team. He hasn't lasted 90 minutes yet. He's barely lasted more than an hour. So his fitness is an issue. But he did play well against Rennes in a really quite forward position, and it's quite likely he may start in a similar position tomorrow. So I think Lawrence, like I often mention in the podcast, I think that Cassoni's main issue is going to be getting the best out of those players. So he'll hope that Marveau forward role will get the best out of Mukanjo and Waris, who are arguably, apart from perhaps Argo Torre and Lecomte, is a very good goalkeeper as well, Lorient's two better players. So I think given the way it went last week, then there's a really good basis for Lorient to build on here. They did well against Bordeaux. I mean, they perhaps didn't deserve to lose that game and played well in Frank Hayes. He's a good coach in his last game in charge, and hopefully Marveau will be able to perhaps even play sort of a false 9 maybe. And with Waris and Mukanjo looking for those bullets, if you like, to get the goals that they need, because that's something they're also really lacking. Haven't really scored enough goals and looked creative enough. So I think it's promising, if nothing else, and it'd be interesting to see how it plays out tomorrow.
All right, Peter, turning to you. Lorient really struggled to bring in a replacement for Sylvain Ripoll. What makes this club so unattractive to potential managers?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think it's probably more a case of asking what is attractive about the job, at least at the moment anyway. The club's financial pockets aren't exactly bulging, I don't think, and whenever they seem to finally bring in a player who shows a bit of spark, like Adam mentioned, obviously Didier Ndong or Lamina Kone going a little bit further back, the club just seem to sell up. Preferably it seems to Sunderland for some reason. It would be a difficult task for any really ambitious manager, I think, to come in and really achieve things at Lorient. So I wondered maybe if they should perhaps turn to the kind of ex-pro route, maybe offering the kind of chance to ex-players who are looking for their first kind of big managerial job. I mean, names that spring to mind straight away would be people like Patrick Vieira, who I think is managing in America at the moment. I know Claude Makelele a while ago was thinking about going into the management. Marcus Desailly as well, former France captain. So these are all people that might be interested in the job purely in the fact because they want to get into management, and maybe the challenge of Lorient will be something that isn't such a risk for them because they just so badly want to get into the into some managerial shoes.
We have to always, of course, be careful about how Makelele's time at Bastia turned out, that is.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But they aren't exactly sport for choice, are they?
It's true. It is a frustrating situation. And I think it really also serves to underscore just how amazing of a job Christian Gourcuff had done there, bringing the club up from Ligue 2 and keeping them there, and even at the fringes of European competition on a few occasions. So looking now at our predictions, Peter, we'll start with you.
I think I'm going to go, 1-0 Lorient.
Our bold results against a more Monaco side.
I've got nothing to lose and everything to gain, Eric.
I think Monaco will win, but I think it'll be a closely fought game, and high scoring as well. Lorient aren't exactly very tight at the back, and Monaco are free scoring at the moment. So 3-2 Monaco.
All right. I will go with a similar approach. I'm going to go with 1-3 to the visitors. Turning now to Friday's other match. That's Lyon's trip to Lille. Lyon are finally finding a bit of form with 2 league wins in a row and continuing our focus on potential redemption stories. Mathieu Valbuena is in line for a start tomorrow with Rachid Ghazal injured and Nabil Fekir suspended. Adam, his start tomorrow is admittedly down for a lack of options for Bruno Genesio, but do you think the former French international has had a raw deal since arriving in Lyon?
I think he has. I was always a big fan of Valbuena at Marseille, and even perhaps in his time in Russia. He's always been a really exciting and talented player for the French national team, and often in European competitions and obviously in Ligue and in Europe in general. He's been a really standout performer. And signing for Lyon, I'm looking at their team at the end of the previous season when they had Lacazette on form, Fekir was on form. We really thought that front three is a three that could be really threatening, not just in France, but in sort of Europe, in European competition. But his sort of form has kind of reflected the teams a little bit in his first season when they sort of under Fournier, they kind of couldn't really find their rhythm and they had like defensive issues and they really couldn't, excuse me, they really couldn't find their rhythm. And he was sort of almost a sort of lightning rod for that. He was the scapegoat. His form sort of reflected the teams. And speaking with my colleague at Football Radar, Andres, who also covers the league, and he's often said that Valbuena wasn't actually playing too badly. He just probably wasn't the sort of that spark that he'd been in his previous clubs. So I think he's got the worst of the situation. He's been sort of the one that's been scapegoated for firstly Fournier's downfall and perhaps now Genesio, who's not had the best starts of this season. So I don't think he's actually played too badly. He's 32 now, so perhaps his powers are on the wane anyway. But I think that overall he has got a bit of a raw deal because I think he's still someone, especially in Ligue 1, that can really offer them something. And perhaps this season especially hasn't been utilised as much. And perhaps the way that the club has gone in the last sort of 18 months has sort of been a sort of poor timing from his point of view. So I honestly like to see him play a lot more. I know that Gazell's first choice and had a really good sort of 6 to 12 months, I guess. But I think Valbuena should still be an integral part of this side. But it's just whether Genesio can get the best out of him at 32 and whether he's sort of one of those players that his career is kind of sort of on its way out now and he's perhaps not the player he was. So I'd like to see him in a team and I think he has got a little bit more often anyway. And I think he has got a bit of a raw deal, but it may be not just his poor performances, it may also be sort of circumstance. So perhaps I would like to see him used more, and it hasn't really gone well for him. It's a shame, but hopefully we'll see a renaissance from Valbuena in the second half of this season.
All right. Peter, to you then with the broader question surrounding Lyon. They've struggled by their standards to start the season. And there have been a few rumors floating around lately. One of them was Bertrand Traoré to the Chelsea youngster coming in. Is there a fix to be had in the January window, or should this team focus on the talent that they do have?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not totally sure on Traoré. He's on loan at Ajax, I think, at the moment. I'm not sure if that's a season-long loan deal or just till January, but he'd certainly be an interesting option. Though, if I'm honest, I'm not quite sure that it is necessarily an issue that they can solve with transfers. I think Lyon recruited fairly well over the summer, and you'd have to say they probably have one of the strongest squads in Liga, probably the strongest squad other than PSG. So for me, the problem must lie a little bit deeper than that. I think the big clubs in Ligue 1 now, if you look at the two major ones other than Lyon, which is obviously PSG and Marseille, they've now got big, inspiring managers at their helm. Rui Garcia and obviously Unai Emery. Should Lyon perhaps be looking to a manager with more ambition to, I don't know, inspire players and the fans? I suppose you're probably more suited to answer that one, Eric.
It's hard to tell. I think that the strategy they've taken in appointing these French managers, dating back to the time of Remy Gard, I think is a strategy driven by their financial circumstances. That they didn't want to overpay for someone of high reputation because they simply couldn't afford it. Between the funding of the Parc OL and the transfer mishaps they'd had, particularly the signings of Yoann Gourcuff and Ali Sissoko, that is, their fees relative to their success on the pitch, had really hamstrung the club. Jimmy Briand was another one who probably didn't justify his fee. Ed Erson is another one. And trying to claw back from that, I think Lyon were forced to be needs must for a while. And simply because of the talent they had and the amazing success of the youth academy at the club, they have managed to stay in contention despite this. But now I think, with the talent they have on hand now in terms of Tolisso, Lacazette, Fekir, Gonalon, Lopez, there's really not much of an excuse for Lyon not to be further up the table and making a better show of themselves in the Champions League. And
definitely.
How much of that is down to having a top quality manager? Well, it's hard to say because the other side of this coin, we've seen quite a bit of frisson between players brought in and the younger academy players. The reception and interactions of Claudio Bovu last year being probably the biggest example of that, but there have been others as well. I mean, Milan Bistovac, who had been a pretty good servant for the team, left the team in bad terms last winter after falling out with Genesio, and I think there certainly is a bit of tribalism there as regards who's an academy product and who's being brought in. And some players seem to have fit in without much problems. I think Henry Bedimo had a productive time with the club, for example, but I don't know. It's a dangerous situation because if a manager of some reputation is brought in and these academy players, again, the ones I've just mentioned, don't respond well to him, well, then you've got a more expensive, then you're on the hook for much more, and you've got underperforming players. So it's a bit of a sticky wicket for Lyon. I'm not really sure personally what direction they should go in. I think Genesio does deserve more time. I think that injuries have played too much of a role in their poor start to the season, but I think they've got a lot of intriguing younger pieces too. I mean, Mamana, Giacabbi, Mateta. I mean, there's Kalulu, Cornet. There's still more to come from this team. They do have a chance to get better. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. Adam, your prediction for the game?
Well, I think it's going to be another interesting one, but I think another away win. So 2-1 Lyon.
Okay. I'll go for a 1-1 draw. And Peter?
I'm going to go 2-0 Lyon. I can't see Lille doing much in this game, if I'm honest.
All right. Even though Nico Depreville is set to come back, where's Nathan?
Your favourite.
Where's Nathan to defend him when you need him? So moving on now to Saturday's match. We've got the early match, and that's PSG hosting Nantes. Adam, let's take a look at Nantes. Nikolai Thompson and Alexander Kasaniklic have a decent amount of experience between them. They're both senior international for Denmark and Sweden, their respective countries, but haven't really had a great start to their time in Brittany. With Amin Harit and Valentin Rongier both out for this match, the Scandinavian duo should both be included against the champions. What's held this pair back so far, and could there be more to come from the two?
It is an interesting one because given I was quite excited when Nantes signed Alex Kacanovic in particular. I remember him coming through at Fulham and being quite exciting for quite a while in the Premier League. But I think perhaps that he's an example of a bit of a Francis Jeffers in that he's 25 and his career has already started to sort of downturn. His sort of influence on games has downturned quite a lot since that sort of initial period in the Fulham team, dropping to the Championship. Obviously, they had a lot of managers. Kit Simons was there for a while, and they had a lot of changes, and he was in and out of the team. Form dropped away quite a lot, and he hasn't been given that chance that he would have loved to have to develop. Perhaps at the time when he was really performing for Fulham and playing well when they were a good Premier League side, he might have expected a move to a slightly bigger club, and his career could have gone in a very different direction. But he's maybe somebody that's peaked earlier, maybe even flattered to deceive a little bit. Maybe he hasn't got the potential to influence games on a regular basis in the way he did when he was sort of that sort of young gun at Fulham. I was surprised he was only 25, to be honest. I thought he was a lot younger than that. So maybe he has that potential, but but whether he can still realise it is another question. Nikolai Thompson is a different one. Apologies. He sort of was at Alba for like 5 years, and he would have played European games, would have had continental experience, but I'm not sure that he's had that experience too much outside the Danish league, which, although an interesting league, isn't the strongest. So I think sort of acquiring him and making him sort of a key part of the team was a gamble to start with anyway. So it's whether he's got the ability to make that step up to Ligue 1. And I've not really seen it so far. So although those two players might turn out to be good squad players, it's whether they can. Sorry, wow, having real issues. It's whether they can whether they're going to replace Harit and Rongier on Saturday's game and perform as well as those two have. I'm a big fan of Rongier, as I mentioned before on the pod, and I mean Harit's been fantastic since the summer, probably their best player so far this season. But I don't know if they've both between them, Thompson and Kaczynski have really got the quality in this league at this stage of their career. I'm not sure they're the signings that Gerrard would have hoped they would have been. So there's a little bit. Perhaps Kaczynski's still got something to prove, but Thompson I've really not been impressed with at all. So disappointing, I think, and it's one of the things that Nantes have failed so far this season to really bring in the players to bring them onto that next level that Cater and the president Vladimir Cater and the fans really desire. They've really struggled so far. So I think there's still hope, especially for Kaczynski, but overall I'm not sure they're up to the standard that they would have hoped when they signed.
Could I just quickly interject and say that just on Kaczynski as well, I saw him play quite a lot for Fulham in the Championship, and he's a player that's always reminded me of Florian Thauvin, in that he's not too fast but very, very tricky, and he really does light up a game on his day. I saw Fulham play Derby last year towards the end of the year, and he was really the only bright spark in that team. So that he's got something, but I get the feeling that he's someone who needs to be constantly playing and also needs to be utilised in the right way. Whether or not that's happening at Nantes, I'm not really sure. Adam, obviously, you be the main man to answer that one. But he is certainly a player that can really light up a game.
I think he's one of those players that needs a rhythm. Like he needs to be said. He needs to be playing every week and he needs confidence. And I'm not sure, given the options they've got and the switching formation and Gerrard trying to find some sort of formula that will get his side up the table, given how close he was to the sack last month, or the month before, maybe now, October, last month. And it's something that he might not get in this team. So he may do that later on in the year if it works out in that way. I don't know that Bamu's going to be a consistent player on the right-hand side of the midfield, and I personally think Kaczynski is a better player. I'm not a huge fan of Yassine Bonu, so he might get his chances, but hopefully you're right, and hopefully that form at Fulham will transit at some point, but I haven't seen it too much yet.
All right, Peter, moving on now. With Adrian Rabiot out because of a thigh injury suffered on international duty, could this be the match in which Igor Kovacic finally makes his mark?
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, it's such a shame, obviously, for Rabiot. He was really looking like coming on leaps and bounds this season, and had been playing very well under Unai Emery. But I suppose you've got to make the best of a bad situation, and hopefully he will do, Erica. We mentioned before numerous times in the podcast of what a huge signing Krychowiak has been for PSG, especially in terms of finances, and how surprised we've all been not to see him feature more regularly for PSG. I mean, especially considering the decline in form of the once great Thiago Motta. So I'd love to see the Polish midfielder cement a place in the side personally. I think his performances at Sevilla last year and for Poland, it was impressive at the Euros, I think merit his place. But I guess it's that age-old argument. We don't get to see what happens behind closed doors, and we don't know what's going on in terms of the hierarchy of PSG. So I guess we'll have to wait and see, but hopefully, yes, I hope so.
All right. We'll go with some score predictions now. I'm going to go with 3-0 win for PSG. Peter?
I'll go 2-0 PSG.
All right. And Adam?
I'm going to go 4-0 PSG. I think they look really good against Rennes finally last time out. So 4-0 for me.
All right. And speaking of Rennes, we're going to move now on to their match. They're hosting Angers. Peter, youngster Nicolas Pepe made his debut for the Ivory Coast against France on Tuesday. While he admittedly didn't impact the match much, he may get a start with Karl Toko Ekambi returning from injury. How do you see Pepe's place in the team developing, especially given the essentially season-ending injury to Billy Kekeofomfo?
Good. I mean, fair play to you for having a go at pronouncing that one. I think most people try and duck around that one. So at least fair play to you for giving it a go. I think he could potentially offer Angers a lot this season, if not just for the fact that he's somewhat of a surprise package and defenders aren't necessarily going to know what to expect. Obviously, you mentioned his pace, but at 21, he's got a lot of his career ahead of him and so much time to kind of learn and grow as a player. I think the fact as well that he can play on either wing offers Angers a lot. He's a versatile player. He's the kind of player that a team like Angers that really need in a way. And I think if you're going to be fighting for your place in Ligue like you would imagine Angers are going to be, you need that kind of player in abundance. So, I hope he does well. I don't think they'll play him. Like I said, I think they'll play him out wide. I don't think they'll play him as a centre forward because I think they would look to utilise his pace. But yeah, if he could add some goals to his game, he could potentially end up being quite big part for them.
All right. What do you see? How do you see this match going score-wise?
I will go for. I'll go 1-0 Angers. I think I'll stick for them.
Adam?
1-0 for me.
All right, and I'm going to go 1-2 to Angers. So now we're moving on now to Sunday. We're going to look at a pair of matches. We're going to start with the early match, and that's Bordeaux's visit to Guingamp. This early Sunday match was probably hardly one to circle on the calendar when the fixtures were first announced. With the hosts in force and the visitors just 2 points behind them, it probably has more appeal than one would think. Adam, Guingamp have looked very sharp at times, while Bordeaux seems to have ridden their luck in terms of some of their results, most notably their win against Lorient last weekend. It's early in the season, but does a win for Guingamp against a much more highly regarded opponent really stamp them as genuine European contenders?
I think it might. I think it was one of those situations where it's still quite early to tell with Guingamp. They're doing brilliantly well. They've had a fantastic start to the season and have Antoine Kombare is not a manager I particularly rated before his stint at Guingamp. He was obviously at PSG for a little while, and I covered Rennes Football Radar when he was their manager. Obviously, they had a lot of issues that season, and he can't be blamed for can't be blamed for their downfall back to Ligue 2. But I think perhaps it's one of those situations that you might need to sort of look at again when we come to sort of the Christmas time, once they've played everyone, once that first round of, if you like, round of fixtures where everyone's played everyone has got out of the way, and see where Guingamp are then. They've obviously got some really, really good results so far. They drew on the opening day at Monaco, and in fact they've played really well in spells. So I've been really impressed with them. Yana Saliba is still a really good performer for them. Jimmy Brion's had a decent enough season, so they're just a solid unit, and he's really got the best out of their team. They're really maximising the talent that they've got at their disposal. But to say that they might finish in the European places is a little bit early to tell with whether that's a likelihood for them as yet, given that there's 4 European places from the league, and assuming as last season where PSG win both cups, 6 is going to be the maximum, or maybe one of those other top 4 sides win a cup. To finish in the top 6 in this league is for Guingamp, a club like Guingamp, is very, very difficult. But I think top half they'll be looking at the moment, and perhaps push on if after the winter break towards the top 6 if they're still in this really good position. And a win over Bordeaux tomorrow would definitely give them a lot of confidence, because if you look at Bordeaux's squad, they're kind of the opposite. They're kind of like, they've got so many good players. They've got such a good squad. I think you could argue that their squad is 4th best in the league, perhaps, maybe even higher. And they're not performing as a group, whereas Guingamp, the opposite, they haven't really got too many standout players, but they are performing as a group and they're getting results and they look like a team. Bordeaux don't really look like a team at the moment, so I think it would be a really big win for Guingamp if they can get this result, because as it stands, they're the form side, and they may even be favourites at home tomorrow. So I remember this game being very good last season. I think 4-2 to Bordeaux. I seem to remember. So it might be quite an exciting one, but if Gangwon get that win, then it's fuel to the fire, isn't it? They why not push on for Europe? It's by no means impossible, and they look good. So hopefully they'll keep the run up.
And Adam, what about Bordeaux? This is a team that you cover Football Radar and have written some good stuff in our Ligue on review column. This club continued to bring in a wealth of talent, while the play of experienced players like Gregory Sertic and Cedric Carrasso, who is admittedly currently injured but was dropped last season, suffers from a lack of continuity in terms of system and personnel around them. Is this team lacking direction to what's becoming a paralyzing extent?
I think it's very difficult to characterize what the issue is with Bordeaux so far this season. I think I liked what Justin Gourvenec's done in terms of how he's affected the club as a wider entity, if you like. So I think, given that last season under Willy Sagnol, they had ridiculous amounts of injuries, it was almost laughable, and they sort of really lost their impetus, not just as a team, as a squad, but as a club, and the attendances in their new stadium really dwindled. And I went out and met some of the fans last season. They were very, very upset about how their team was going, and even though they liked Sagnol, they felt like that it was time for him to move on at that point, because he obviously lost that aura over the team. He had some issues with one or two players. There were fan protests, and Jean-Louis Trio went to a couple of training sessions to sort of oversee what was going on, as I seem to recall. So I think that Gourvenec really made an effort to get the fans back on side. So I think off the pitch, he kind of, well, as with this relationship with the fans, he did get some direction in. I think they felt like they were going somewhere at the start of the season. They made some really good signings. Toulon and Menez, like massive signings for a club like Bordeaux in this position. Both really experienced French, European players coming from big clubs. They would have felt like this is, he's really got a hold on this squad, and they can keep everybody fit. They've got some great players, and they should push on. But for some reason, it's more like, although I feel like he's done the right thing, those solutions haven't really sort of come off, not because of the way he's gone about it, but players are underperforming across their team. Toulon looked brilliant in pre-season, but has not lived up to anywhere near the expectations that I on this podcast placed on him earlier in the year. Menez has been intermittent at best. He's barely like the player that he was at his best at AC Milan and before. Adam Ounas is being played. This is maybe one mistake that Gourvenec's made. Adam Ounas is playing on the wrong wing for me. He's left-footed but likes to cut inside, and he's been played sort of out wide where he has to go around on the outside and cross. I think he's much more dangerous cutting in. Yaroslav Plaster's not had the best. He's been such a stalwart for them. He's now 34. Is he a little bit too old? Perhaps is his influence on the rain. Diego Rolland's not had a great season, and Malcolm's despite promising some really great things at the end of last season and the start of the season, has really trailed off. So I'm not sure where Gourvenec's gone wrong in terms of tactics or squad selection. I feel like the team are underperforming. Perhaps it's just an example of him sacrificing system to get all his best players into that 4-2-4 that they play. Perhaps he needs to think about dropping one of the more forward players and going 4-3-3. And we've talked about Igor, whose surname I'm not going to attempt to pronounce, from Poland, has done really well and come in and using him, and then Sertic further forward perhaps might be a solution. Maybe go 4-3-3, a little bit more solid, a bit more impetus in midfield, a bit more control of the ball. Might use Valentin Vado a little bit more, who's great on the ball, good range of passing. So maybe that would be a bit more prudent going forward. And I understand that his attacking intent was something that he really prioritised, and that 4-4-2/4-2-4 was key to that. But maybe it's sort of outstayed its welcome, and perhaps he needs to think about changing the direction tactically. But overall, I think he's done the right things that just haven't come off yet.
Yeah, I do have to say that's a really well-stated sentiment there, Adam. I do think that we've seen the best from Bordeaux in the recent past. I think also about the 4-3-1-2 down the back end in 2015 with Kasri behind the pairing of Kiese Thelen and Roland. That giving those younger attacking players a bit more freedom would seem to perhaps release some of that pressure and allow them more chances to create instead of relying on the likes of Roland and Menez, who have not been at their best to start the season. To be
no, not at all.
Charitable. So what then would be your prediction for this?
I'm relatively optimistic about this one. I'm going to go 2-2.
2-2 goals galore. And Peter?
I'm going to 2-1 Gangwon.
Okay, I'm going to go 1-0. All right, and finally, let's take a look at Saint-Etienne and Nice. This is Sunday's evening match. Adam, the Etienne have incredibly lost just once in the last 3 months in all competitions, but they still sit in ninth place in the table. Is this a chance to make a statement win? The conditions seem right. They're playing at home to the league leaders, who are missing key players in Paul Bice and Mario Balotelli. What do you say?
I think it could be. I was really disappointed that Nice came up short in their previous game away at Caen. I was really hoping they'd maintain that 6-point lead going into the break. And for the first time, I felt like perhaps, although it may be a slightly harsh criticism, Lucien Favre and his team came up short, like in terms of ideas for the first time this season. Obviously, it was their first defeat, and they've had a fantastic start. But I think they may be, given the reasons you just stated with players out, they may be there for the taking in this game, and especially with Saint-Etienne at home, they're going to fancy themselves in this fixture. With Saint-Etienne, it's been a really weird season because I think they've sort of very much scraped by. They've very much sort of scraped the results. A colleague of mine often jokes that when they score in the first half, which is very rarely this season, that they've sort of scored too early, and it's why aren't they waiting until the last minute? Because they've salvaged draws and wins and the odd point here and there from sort of the jaws of defeat, if you like. A couple of times in Europa League, I remember Anderlecht, Dijon, that penalty at home. So they've sort of scraped by, and I think now they had some injuries and they're getting players back. They sort of starting to look like the team they should look like with all their players fit. When you've got Veretout and Henri Saivet, who are obviously really good league and performers. If Beric can get him onto goal, he's a really good finisher. Even as much as I dislike him, Asamoah Gyanan's looked all right in the last few weeks. So I think they're evolving slowly. Perhaps they're going to hit their form at the right time in this really busy period, and we're going to see them progress into those later rounds of Europa League and up the table in Ligue 1, which is very much the expectation for Gautier this season, given he's been 7 years I think now. So it's sort of that comes to that point where he's kind of progressed them every season until kind of last season when they were treading water. Has he taken the club as far as he can take them? I'm not too sure. I wouldn't be surprised if he started the next season as a manager of another team, or just not at Saint-Etienne. So a win here would be huge because Nice started so well. That's the kind of route Saint-Etienne want for themselves and where they see themselves. So obviously an ambitious team, an historically important team, and one that is very proud of their history. So a win here would be really beneficial to sort of support their claim that they should be where Nice are, given the players they've got and the manager they've got and the funds they've invested. So I think a win here, if they can pull it off, and Nice may be there for the taking, would be huge. So as I imagine the fans of Saint-Etienne will definitely be hoping so.
All right, Peter, this could be a huge stumbling block for Nice. This begins a run of 10 matches in just over a month for Les Aiglons. Is this the type of match Lucien Favre should take a punt on, or would you like to see a full-throttle approach against Les Verts as they hope to perhaps make up ground on the likes of Monaco and PSG playing last as they do?
Yeah, I think as a neutral, it's easy for me to say full throttle all the way, but I am going to anyway. I really would go for this one. This could end up being such an incredible season for Nice, with the big teams around them obviously stop starting a little bit this season and faltering away a little bit, and I really don't think there's any reason to think that Nice couldn't be title contenders. They've looked absolutely fantastic this season, and I'd hate for Lucien Favre to become cautious or bogged down with expectation or nerve. I don't think that's what got them into this position in the first place. They've been so brave in the way that they've approached each game, and they've really just gone for it. Doesn't matter who it is, and I'd hate to see that change. So I think, as we've seen by Saint-Etienne performances this season, they can be absolutely awesome on their day and absolutely awful not on their day. So really, I would go for it. And that would be my advice. I would hate to see Nice become a team that get overwhelmed by the immensity of the task and also the immensity of how much it would mean to, I think, French football in general, if a team like Nice, who haven't got billions of euros behind them, if they could win this league, it could just be huge for French football in general, and I really am behind them.
All right, so then we'll finish this off with predictions. I'm going to go with the typical Saint-Etienne result, 1-1. Peter?
I'm going to go 1-0 Nice.
And Adam?
I would love to see Nice win. I agree with Peter, definitely. I'd love to see them win this league. It'd be great. But I have a feeling Saint-Etienne might win 1-0 tomorrow or Sunday.
Well, thanks for joining me, gents. That is all for today. Please do follow us on Twitter at GFFN and at GFFN Matchzone for coverage of tomorrow's matches and all the goals throughout the weekend. And also visit us on Monday at 8 p.m. British time, 9 p.m. European time for the GFFN show hosted by Nathan Staples, where I join him and Philip Bargio. Thank you and have a pleasant weekend. Enjoy your football, both French and otherwise. A lot of great games going around Europe this weekend. Thank you.